What's up, everybody? I'm going to structure this video like I structured my Peter Pan and Wendy review. So I'm going to go over my review, give my thoughts on the movie, and then we'll conclude the video with watching the Critical Drinkers uh, compilation review, whatever you call his little compilations. I think they're like nice little compilations of imagery. Um, But anyways, so this movie, I I gotta say, like overall, I feel it was a pretty mediocre movie. It lost my attention like 4 times. I had to basically force myself to finish it. Um, Now that could have just been me. That could have just been my attention span. Um, or I don't know. I can't say for sure that's the movie's fault. That could have just been the mood I was in that day, you know. Um, who knows? But the movie is, I don't know. The pacing was just weird. I enjoyed Zachary Levi. He was good. Everything about his portrayal was fine and good, and I enjoyed the first one. But this one just felt weird. It felt it felt off, and there was a lot of times where I, like during the movie, I while I was watching it, I've said to myself, this could be mistaken for a CW show right now. Like during like even some of the action sequences was on par with Superman and Lois, right? Which is his HBO Max CW show. Well, it's produced by HBO Max and it airs on the CW. But I was like, this feels like a CW show right now. Um, I don't know. I didn't. There was just certain things that I didn't like about the foster family dynamic. I really like I really like Zachary Levi as Captain Marvel. Oh, that reminds me. That was another thing I really liked. They almost did it, but then they lost their balls at the end. Um, but they hinted at his real name, which we're not allowed to call him anymore. Right? One of the pedestrians was wearing a fan shirt of a fan shirt and said, "Hey, Captain Marvel, you're awesome." And he's like, "Hey, thanks. I like that name." Or something like that. It was some sort of interaction like that. And I was like, "Heck yes. Are they going to give him his name back? Are they going to have the balls to do it?" Because that one pedestrian called him Captain Marvel, and then it's so funny that name's been stolen, and then the character that name has been given to, nobody likes. So now that name is ruined, and the person who that name originally belonged to for 20 years longer, like literally for 20 plus years longer, the original Captain Marvel can't even use it anymore. So now the name is just wasted. Now it's just wasted. Anyways, so they hinted at it, but then at the end of the movie, they just went right back to calling him Shazam instead of Captain Marvel. So that was kind of dumb. Back to the foster family dynamic. There were just certain things I don't like about it. I didn't like that. I didn't like that they just condone um the oldest sibling, who's a hot college girl. She is a smoke show though, for real. They just kind of condone her being a partying college girl. Like they condone that behavior. I don't think that's cool. So she's like in college and like getting drunk at parties. I frowned on that. Uh, Another thing that I thought was weird, that I didn't notice this in the first movie, but I noticed it in this movie. What the hell is that foster mom doing with that foster dad? Like, look at that dude. Dude, look at that dude and then look at her. She's like an old Megan Fox, and he's like a rotund fatty McFatty pants. Like, I don't know. It just didn't make any sense. It's like he could. There's it does. Come on now. It. Anyways. Oh, another thing I thought was funny with the Foster family was before the big epic fight scene. Um, Billy Batson says, "I love you, Mom," and she doesn't say it back. She doesn't say it back. She doesn't say it back. I was like, wow. Uh, you could tell that the hot actress lady, the older lady, that she's like an old Megan Fox. You could tell she was like she was supposed to, but then she was too pained. She was too pained because, like, let's be honest, telling someone you love them when you don't really feel that way, it's hard. It's hard. Like, you gotta force it out. You gotta force it out. Like, it's really hard to tell someone you love them when you're really not feeling it. Even if you in general you love them, but just in that moment you're not really loving them. Even then, it's kind of hard. Um, but yeah, she didn't say it back. She just said, "You too." Then he went off to save the day. There's some other stuff. There was some other criticisms with there's the whole Foster family and the whole there's just a lot of things off with the. I feel like there was miscastings, and because the first movie's pacing was so good, the first movie they nailed the friend, and they nailed Billy Batson, and they nailed um Zachary Levi so much, and the pacing in the movie was so good that you didn't really notice all the problems with the other miscastings. It's like miscastings don't really matter as long as the pacing in the movie is good. But if the pacing in the movie is bad, like with this one, then you notice a bunch more stuff that you didn't notice before. And there's just a lot of problems with the Foster family, and there's also a lot of problems with with the Shazam family, and that's kind of ties into it. Like, I just had problems with the Shazam family dynamics. Like, I don't think Adam Brody was a good pick. I just don't. I don't think that was a good pick. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. Um, it just seemed weird, dude. It just seemed weird. Like, the dude is like, how old is Adam Brody? Adam Brody age. I mean, I guess it's not that bad. How old is Zachary Levi? Adam Brody's 43. Zachary Levi is 42. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'm just nitpicking it. Zachary Levi was good. The rest of the Shazam family, I don't know, man. See, I know the Shazam family is a thing, right? I know it's a thing, but I don't feel they gave him enough time just being Captain Marvel by himself before introducing the Shazam family. It's just too much. Too much. Okay, the villains of the movie, the Sisters of Atlas. Terrible. Terrible. I mean, I know they were probably planning on waiting for like the third one before they had some epicness and gave us Black Adam as the villain, but holy moly, the Sisters of Atlas was such a trash villain team up arc. And also, it was weird that they just kept condoning an 8,000-year-old chick being with a young boy, uh, or like senior in high school. Um, I'm just saying, it's like it's so weird. People are so. I don't know how old the dude. Well, I don't know what condition he has. The dude with crutches. I'm not sure what condition he has that causes him to need the crutches, but he's a little younger than Billy, so I'm assuming he's like 16. Because Billy's like 17 and a half, right? So I don't know, man. It's just if the roles were, well, that's not true. I was about to say if the roles were reversed, it'd be like, oh no, that's so terrible, but that's not true. There's a bunch of stuff where the dude is like 200, 300, 400 years old, and everyone's just okay with it because of how the outward appearance. People are people are so superficial like that, and just fickle as heck. Like, oh, as long as his outward appearance is, you know, still youthful, who cares? Or they're like, I don't care. Or it's just weird, man. It's just weird. It's just weird that the hypocrisy and the double standards. Look at Vampire Diaries, right? Damon and Stefan Salvatore, both 264 years old. Uh, get in the name with Elena Gilbert, who's 17, right? And you look at True Blood, similar type of situation with Suki. So I don't know how to say her name. Is it Suki or Suki? Suki, Suki, Suki Stackhouse, and Eric Northman and Bill something. Um, and then Twilight, same thing. So it's just weird, man. So, oh, the outward appearance is okay. It's the halo effect. That's literally what it is. It's the halo effect. If something is pretty, it must be inherently good. But if something is ugly, it must be evil. Anyways, yeah, I thought that was weird, and it was in two different times. Two different times that was the theme of the movie. The adopted mom even made a joke about it, which was kind of weird. Like she's like, "What is it with my adopt?" She didn't even say it. These are her adopted sons, and she's like, "What is it with them and older women?" Because Billy was into Wonder Woman the whole movie. That was kind of cool. The fact that they got Gal Gadot to make a cameo at the end of the movie, that was kind of cool. Um, that Wonder Woman showing up was kind of like it ultimately it doesn't none of it really matters. And also there was a at the end of the movie too, there was a extra there was a, what do you call it, post credit scene, which kind of is, I don't know, man. Well, I just made a connection. I just made a connection, so I might see where they're going with this. Okay, so yeah, I can have some speculation there. I can have some speculation there. So okay, so ultimately, the all the Snyderverse characters are supposedly gone, right? Or moving to their own little Snyderverse continuation on Netflix with Zack Snyder or whatever. That's the rumors, right? Nothing's concrete, or it is concrete. I can't remember how concrete it is, but anyways, but with Zachary Levi's Captain Marvel being part of this, or was part of the Snyderverse, where does he go? Where does Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman go? Where does Aquaman go? Do they all just continue on in both universes? Do they continue on in two different universes? Is the Flash movie gonna split them into multiverses where all the same actors are portraying their characters in one universe with one story, with James Gunn's story, and then again with Zack Snyder's story? Or I don't know. But I just made this connection just now with the post-credit scene. It didn't occur to me until just now. At the end of the movie, post-credits, two characters from the show Peacemaker show up to recruit Captain Marvel into the Justice Society. And guess who made the show Peacemaker that these characters are from? James Gunn made the show Peacemaker, so that means that Zachary Levi has a home in the new DC universe as Captain Marvel in James Gunn's new DC universe. Anyways, it was I don't know, it was kind of a cool cliffhanger, but at the same time it was stupid because they're two insignificant characters. They should have got Peacemaker to recruit him, which is still kind of stupid because Peacemaker's also D-list, but these were like F-list characters. Anyways, overall it was just a pretty mediocre movie. Like, I don't know, I'd give it a 3 out of 5. It was entertaining, but not enough. Like, dude, three or four times I almost stopped watching the movie and got completely uninterested. So like, I'd give it like a 3 or like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. If on 5-star scale, 3, 10 scale, 6, something like, I don't know. Anyways, let's jump into Critical Drinkers. Let's jump into Critical Drinkers. Here we go.
You know, sometimes you meet a stranger.
Oops.
You know, sometimes you meet a stranger at a party or some dull corporate event and you end up having what I call a beige conversation. You swap some pleasantries, make a few innocuous jokes, and offer up some mild, inoffensive opinions about the current state of things. It's all perfectly polite and easygoing, but there's no real substance or purpose to it, and by the time it's over, the best you can say is, well, they seem nice enough. And by the following day, you'll struggle to even remember a single thing that either of you said or did. Well, that's basically my experience of Shazam 2, a perfectly nice, reliably inoffensive, and completely forgettable sequel that nobody really asked for or wanted. A film that did all the things expected of a superhero movie, showed us some good-looking people in tight outfits, delivered a few obligatory action scenes, a tried and tested message about the importance of teamwork, trusting people to make their own choices, and the value of self-sacrifice, and threw in some innocuous jokes that even the most blue-haired of Twitter land whales would struggle to get offended by. And now that I'm sitting here talking about it, I feel like I have to keep referring to a plot synopsis to remind myself of what even happens. Shazam 2 is the very definition of a generic superhero movie, a film that doesn't really do many things wrong, mainly because it doesn't try to do, well, anything. It exists for no other reason than because it can. And yet, ironically, it's probably better than almost anything that Marvel have managed to shit out in the past couple of years, which makes it kind of sad that the film is absolutely bombing at the box office, but don't worry, I'll talk about that one later. Believe that.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, the film once again stars Zachary Levi as Billy
That is fair to say that it was automatically better than most of the recent Marvel films because it didn't really have any wokeness or political stuff. Like, there was like one offhand joke that could have been considered woke, but it was like, it's not. It was so minor and so quick that it wasn't that big a deal. But yeah, so it's already got brownie points for that, but it's just so mediocre and forgettable.
An orphan teenager from a suspiciously clean and efficient looking Philadelphia. Seriously, when I passed through it last year, the place looked like the aftermath of the Battle of Stalingrad. Anyway, Billy has the magical ability to turn into a superpowered godlike being called Shazam because he stole it from a wizard in the previous movie. He and his mates have been working together as a
That's another thing I hate about these movies, and I remember while I was watching the movie, I remembered thinking this to myself, and I also think the same thing every time they like all the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, right? Every time they show kids in high school in these movies, whether it be this movie, the Spider-Man movies, every time they showed this overhead shot of this beautiful, amazing looking urban school, very nice structured building, um, pristine condition, looks very fairy tale esque. But in real life, these places are run down and crappy and just like it's just everything's so fake. It's like, dude, no one's going to like these fancy giant uh, like stone amazing architecture high schools. It's just, I don't know, maybe they are, but only the rich people, not these normal kids.
Superhero team to fight crime and prevent disasters in the city, but since they're basically a bunch of kids that have been handed godlike powers with no training or preparation, it goes about as well as you might expect. But that's the least of Billy's problems when Hespera and Calypso, a pair of evil gods from another dimension, break into a museum and steal the wizard's staff that gave Billy his powers. Their objective is to recover the golden apple from the Tree of Life so they can use it to restore their own world to peace and prosperity. So there's some fighting and one of the gang gets captured, and Billy and the others try to negotiate his release, and there's a wacky joke about a magical pen that transcribes everything they say that gets hammered into the ground so fucking hard that it practically penetrates the Earth's core. Then there's more fighting, and Hespera gets captured by Billy, who decides to leave her alone and unguarded in a prison cell. She's a fucking demigod with magical control over the elements, mate. Do you really think a set of steel bars are gonna stop her? Anyway, much to my non-surprise, Hespera escapes and steals the golden apple, but then Billy's mate Freddy also manages to escape because Hespera's other sister feels sorry for him and lets him go. Sure, okay. Then Calypso goes rogue and decides to wipe out all of humanity so that the rest of the movie can happen. So she summons a big army of disposable CGI monsters for the humans to fight. And since most of the gang have lost their powers over the course of the movie, it's up to Billy to face her one-on-one in a big CGI battle scene where I was never entirely sure of what was happening or why, but I know that at the end he sacrifices his life to stop her. But that's okay because then Wonder Woman shows up for some reason and brings him back to life, and everything goes back to normal like none of this even happens. You know, it's almost difficult to criticize a movie like Shazam 2 because it's so completely lacking in ambition and original ideas that it almost can't go wrong. The plot is the most standard boilerplate superhero story you could ask for. An evil enemy wants to unleash the apocalypse on Earth using a magical plot device that's the key to everything, and it's up to a plucky band of heroes to master their powers and work together to stop it. It's basically the Avengers, Justice League, and Suicide Squad, only with a bunch of characters that no one really cares about. I mean, yeah, there's definitely a few moments where the stupidity reaches critical mass, and even the old "they're just kids" excuse isn't enough to explain it away. Like characters with overwhelming speed and strength that should allow them an easy victory consistently stop in the middle of fights to marvel at how cool they are, allowing time for their enemies to regroup and come at them again. And then there's the totally inexplicable stuff, like one character who teleports out of the way of an incoming energy blast, only to get caught by it like 10 seconds later because I guess she teleported in an exact straight line. Bullshit! I mean, seriously, have you never heard of stepping aside? Power levels fluctuate wildly throughout the film. Shazam takes serious damage just by getting thrown against a wall, but later in the film he's able to punch through an entire
Yes, okay. Well, first I want to comment on that lightning bolt. To be fair, in the movie, I was assuming it was kind of like an Omega beam, where like Darkseid's laser beams that come out from his eyes, they can change directions. So I just assumed that's what was happening, was the bolt was changing directions on her, and that's how it still got her. But yeah, that what he was just showing those fight scenes. Those fight scenes when Shazam was getting thrown into a wall, and during that exact scene that they showed, it was like a CW fight.
Building without even messing his hair up. Not to mention that nobody seems to spill a single drop of blood in the entire movie, even a character who gets impaled by a fucking dragon. And then there's the ending that feels about as cheap and contrived as Ant-Man 3. Remember Star Trek Into Darkness, where Kirk sacrifices himself to save the Enterprise, only to get resurrected by Khan's magical bullshit blood like 5 minutes later?
not a great plan.
Well, that's basically Shazam 2. Remember when movies had stakes and consequences? I like that. There's also a problem with cast bloat in this movie. There's like 6 members of the Shazam team, but only 2 of them get any real character development. The others just kind of hang around in the background. But damn, I wouldn't mind seeing more of this one if you catch my drift.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, she's a smoke show. That's the college one that I was commenting on at the beginning of the video. The college the college drunken partier. I'm not gonna say it. No, I'll say it. Thoughty hottie. But anyways, she looks familiar as heck, and I'm not sure. I think that's Alicia from Smallville, but the math doesn't add up. It's like, it really looks like that could be Alicia from Smallville, just with brunette hair instead of blonde hair. But the math doesn't add up because it's been like 15 years or more since she was in Smallville, and there's no way that she still looks that good when she would be like at least 40, which makes no sense because Gal Gadot is only 38 and she looks 45 in this movie. But anyways, I don't think it's her, but it might be. It's very similar. I mean, come on, guys. If you guys know who I'm talking about, Alicia from Smallville, that looks like a brunette version of her.
Drift. All I can tell you about one of the other characters is that she really loves Skittles in what has to be one of the most shameless and absurd pieces of product placement I've ever seen.
Yep.
Anyway, all this.
Yes. When that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such bad product placement. Like when they're doing the Skittles, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such bad product placement. Please don't say the line. Please don't say the line. And then she said it. She said the line. She said, "Taste the rainbow." I was like, oh no, this is as bad as an Adam Sandler movie with product placement.
Criticisms made me thirsty. Excuse me while I open a can of delicious Pepsi to quench my thirsts. I don't know how I'd get by without it. Zachary Levi is decent as Shazam, bringing the same manic, childish energy as the first movie, and watching him swagger around in his big, goofy red costume, it's kinda hard not to like the guy just a little bit. Billy's a clueless kid that's totally out of his depth in this situation, and there's a decent little subplot about his angst over growing older and losing the family that he's come to rely on. It's not exactly Shakespeare, but it's enough to keep his character arc ticking over. Helen Mirren does her best in a part that's not really worthy of her talents, and while Jimon Honso is always fun to watch, the movie doesn't really give him much to do except to crack a few deadpan jokes here and there. But by far the worst offender has got to be Lucy Liu, who looks bored out of her mind and phones in a performance that only serves to highlight how clunky her dialogue is. I suspect that most of her scenes were filmed against a green screen, reacting to something that wasn't even there, but it's a bit of a problem when the main antagonist of your movie looks like they couldn't give a shit if they win or lose. And I guess that basically sums up my own experience of this movie.
That's how
I was
Lucy
never
Liu
particularly
always
engaged
looks,
with it because I never got the sense that anything or anyone was
Just a
genuinely at
deadpan
risk.
face.
Just like Black Adam, it becomes difficult to pick apart the writing of Shazam 2 because by the time you come to think about it, you've forgotten half the stuff that even happens. Were the characters likable? I mean, I think so. The actors seem pleasant enough, but they get so little development that it's tough to say anything substantial about them. What about the action scenes? Well, I vaguely remember a bunch of stuff exploding and
That's the scene I was talking about. That's the scene where he says, "I love you, Mom," and she doesn't say it back. Which is even more hilarious considering his backstory of being abandoned by his mother in the first movie. Yeah. That post-credit scene with the villain from the first movie, and the little slug, that was so dumb. That's I think that's the first post-credit scene. I don't remember if that's the first or the second. Anyways, the good one comes after the end, and well, I don't remember which order they come in, but one is decent and the other one's not even worth watching.
some disposable CGI monsters showing up, but that's about it. Were the jokes funny? Well, most of the humour felt about 5 years out of date, and the recurring gags were used way too much, but it all seemed pretty good-natured and well-intentioned. Unlike the MCU, I never got the sense that straight white men were legally mandated to be the butt of every single joke in this film. But the biggest question I find myself asking about Shazam 2 is, what was even the point of this movie? As much as the first Shazam was a welcome relief from the bleak, desaturated nihilism of the Snyderverse, it wasn't exactly a roaring success at the box office, and it definitely didn't feel like it needed a sequel. Not to mention the fact that just like The Flash and Aquaman 2, it represents a creative dead end for the DCU, so there's not a whole lot of incentive to watch it. Basically what I'm saying is that the first Shazam was an ideal time to play it safe. This is not. This is the time to go all in, take risks, do the unexpected. And therein lies the rub, dear viewer. The days when you could just trot out another generic boilerplate superhero movie like the dozens of other—
The problem is I agree with that. I agree with him entirely what he's saying. The problem is, at the time when they made it, they didn't know that this was the end, right? They didn't know that, oh, this is the end of this iteration of the DCU. They didn't know.
Others that came before it are a thing of the past. The superhero genre is heading into its twilight years now, and if you really want to grab audience,
they didn't know that Black Adam was gonna flop. They didn't know that the Zack Snyder, the Snyderverse wasn't gonna come back. They didn't know that Henry Cavill was gonna get let go as Superman. They didn't know that everything was gonna switch over to James Gunn. They didn't know any of that, and this was the last hurrah. Now, because he's so likable and he's friends with James Gunn, according to the end credit scenes, it looks like James Gunn is going to bring him over to the new universe as Captain Marvel. That's what it looks like is going to happen because of the whole Peacemaker connection. But that's just speculation on my end, because I don't know, because James Gunn made Peacemaker in the first place. So that's my theory.
Agency's waning attention, then you have to raise the bar of quality, passion, and imagination beyond not making something terrible. As I said at the start of this review, I came away from Shazam 2 with no real sense that I'd seen anything significant. Just like that conversation with a pleasant but forgettable stranger, there's definitely worse ways to spend your time, but I can't really say this is worth spending your hard-earned cash on. Now, just before I fuck off back into the ether, I wanted to make you aware of a little project that I've been working on. My first—
Okay, what is this? Announcement.
ever comic book, which is an officially licensed prequel to the Rambo franchise, is now available to order through Indiegogo.
Oh, he's making a comic book. Okay, so okay, that's what I did. Okay, so to wrap this up. Wrap this long video up. Yeah, that's ultimately it. It's a fun movie. It's a wholesome movie. There's no woke stuff. You don't get made to feel at any time that, oh, white men are bad, blah 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 blah, or any of that stuff. But when it's over, you're like, oh, glad it's over, because it's pleasant but forgettable. You know, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. Anyways, this video has gone on. Ooh, that's okay. That's okay. I like my videos 30 minutes. The videos don't have to be short. Organic. Organic almonds. Alright, so please like, subscribe, and all that stuff. It helps out. Every like, every subscription, it helps me out. 96% of my views are not yet subscribers, so please become a subscriber. I'm on BitChute, I'm on Odyssey. I need to make a Rumble eventually, but I haven't gotten around to it. Anyways, peace out, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.